My friends, there is a peculiar thing about suffering. It seldom seems to mean what we first assume. We often mistake it for punishment, randomness, or misfortune. Yet we forget that a master craftsman never wastes his tools, nor does he strike the marble without reason. The blows of the chisel are not cruelty but care, not wrath but wisdom. It is a mistake to think that we are merely being prepared for this present world, for its comforts or its fleeting successes. No, our purpose is not something that ends with the ticking of a clock. If we believe we are eternal creatures, then we must also believe that our preparation is of an eternal kind. Consider the rough edges of a stone before it becomes a cathedral pillar. Were the stone capable of thought, it would protest against the hammer and chisel, crying out at every sharp strike. Yet what it perceives as suffering is in reality the careful touch of a master builder. It does not yet see the grand hall it will support, the light that will filter through stained glass, or the voices that will one day echo in praise within its walls. So it is with us. The discomforts, delays, and difficulties we encounter are not random disruptions to a pleasant life. They are the sculptor's tools. God is not preparing us for a small purpose, a fleeting success, or a brief triumph. He is fashioning us for something far greater. A soul that is to last forever must be strengthened by something deeper than mere comfort. If we were only meant to thrive in this world, a few lessons in prudence, patience, or skill would be sufficient. But if we are to stand before God Himself, we must be prepared for something weightier. We must be shaped in holiness, in endurance, and, above all, in love. It is easy to wish for a smoother road, to ask why our prayers for ease go unanswered. But consider, what if ease would leave us ill-prepared? What if the very struggles we long to escape are the hands of God moulding us into what we must become? We must hold fast, then, to the truth that we are being prepared, not discarded, shaped, not abandoned, strengthened, not destroyed. And though we may not yet see the full picture, let us trust the hands that shape us, for they belong to one who knows the eternal purpose for which we were made. It is a strange thing, is it not, that we resist suffering, even as we recognize its power to shape us. We often desire ease and comfort, yet it is in hardship that the deepest growth occurs. This is not a cruel paradox, nor a mere trick of fate, but rather a deliberate pattern woven into the fabric of our existence. If we believe in a God who is both good and wise, then we must also believe that He does not allow trials without purpose. Every hardship, every sorrow, every seeming delay or loss, these are not meaningless afflictions, but tools in the hand of a master craftsman, shaping us for something greater. If a man were building a great house, he would not leave raw stones untouched, nor would he set up a crooked beam without correction. He would cut, chisel, and adjust. The stone, if it had a voice, might cry out against the chisel's sharp edge. The beam, if it could feel, might resent the saw's bite. Yet, without such shaping, the house would be weak, unfit for habitation. So too are we in the hands of God. Our trials are not arbitrary sufferings, but necessary refinements for the purpose He has set before us. Perhaps this truth is best seen in the lives of those who have endured great trials. Have you ever noticed that the strongest souls, the ones who shine with an undeniable light, are often those who have walked through the deepest valleys? There is something about hardship that either breaks a person or refines them. But for those who trust in the eternal work of God, suffering is not an end, it is a transformation. It is tempting, when trials come, to believe that we have been abandoned. We cry out, "Why is this happening? Where is God in this?" Yet, if we look with eyes unclouded by fear, we will see that he has not left us. He is nearer than ever. We may think we are being punished when in fact we are being strengthened. We may think we are being forgotten when in truth we are being prepared. There is a reason that ease rarely produces greatness. It is the athlete who trains through exhaustion that becomes strong. It is the student who wrestles with difficulty that gains true understanding. It is the soldier who faces adversity that learns courage. God does not place trials in our path to break us, but to forge us. He is not indifferent to our pain. Rather, he knows that, without it, we cannot become what we were meant to be. Some may ask, but why must it be this way? Could not God simply shape us without suffering? Yet consider this. If love is to be patient, how can it grow without the testing of delays? If faith is to be unshakable, how can it be strengthened without being stretched? If character is to be noble, how can it be built without enduring hardship? Just as fire refines gold, so too does struggle refine the soul. Without this process, we would remain weak, unprepared for the eternal calling that awaits us. The difficulty, of course, is that while we are in the midst of trials, we rarely see their purpose. A tapestry, when examined from the back, appears a tangled mess of threads, yet when turned around, a beautiful design is revealed. So it is with our lives. We see only the pain and confusion of the moment, but God sees the masterpiece he is creating. Therefore, let us not resist the trials that come, nor shrink back in fear. Instead, let us trust that we are being shaped by hands that know exactly what they are doing. Let us remember that trials are not the end of our story, but rather the necessary preparation for something far greater. And one day, when we look back, we will see that every hardship was, in truth, a sign that God was preparing us not for this fleeting world, but for the eternal purpose for which we were made. It is a strange and tragic thing how easily we become entangled in the fleeting affairs of this world. We spend our days chasing success, comfort, and approval, as if these things were the highest good. And yet, deep down, there lingers a quiet dissatisfaction, a restlessness that no earthly achievement can silence. It is as if we are travelers who have mistaken an inn for home. We decorate the walls, settle into its comforts, and grow anxious when we must leave, forgetting that we were never meant to stay. The truth is, our purpose is not rooted in this temporary life, but in eternity. Our days here are but a breath, a mere prelude to something greater. Yet, we live as if this world were all there is, as if our greatest hopes and fears should rise and fall with our fortunes here. We build careers, seek praise, and secure possessions, believing foolishly that these things will satisfy. But even at the height of success, a quiet whisper remains, "Is this all there is?" C.S.Lewis once wrote that if we find in ourselves a desire that nothing in this world can satisfy, it is evidence that we were made for another world. This longing for something beyond, the ache for meaning, the yearning for permanence, is not an illusion but a signpost. It points us to the truth that we are eternal beings, fashioned not for a fleeting existence, but for a purpose that stretches beyond time itself. Consider the difference between a child playing with shadows and a man walking in the sunlight. The child delights in illusions, chasing after shapes on the wall, believing them to be real. But the man knows better. He knows that the shadows are mere reflections of something greater. So too many live their lives chasing shadows, wealth, status, fleeting pleasures, while neglecting the eternal realities that cast them. What does it mean then to have an eternal perspective? It means seeing everything, our struggles, our triumphs, our joys and our sorrows, in the light of forever. It means understanding that our hardships are not meaningless, our sacrifices are not wasted, and our sufferings are not without purpose. If we are being prepared for an eternal calling, then every experience, no matter how small, is shaping us for something far beyond our comprehension. This changes everything. It changes how we endure trials, for we know they are not permanent afflictions, but momentary tools refining us. It changes how we pursue success, for we see that no achievement here can compare to the glory that awaits. It changes how we love others, for we recognize that every soul we encounter is an eternal being, destined for something far greater than this world can offer. But most of all, an eternal perspective changes our hope. The sorrows of this life, the disappointments, the losses, they do not have the final word. If we belong to a God who is shaping us for eternity, then no pain is wasted, no tear is forgotten, and no moment is insignificant. We are not adrift in a meaningless universe, nor are we at the mercy of blind fate. We are in the hands of one who knows the beginning from the end, the potter shaping the clay, the author writing a story far beyond what we can see. And so, we must ask ourselves, are we living for what is temporary or for what is eternal? Are we clinging to the passing or embracing the everlasting? One day, when the fog of this world lifts and we see reality as it truly is, we will know that every moment here was but the first note of a great and glorious symphony, one that was always meant to play forever. If we could see ourselves as we truly are, we might be startled. We often think of ourselves as finished, as already complete in character and purpose, needing only minor improvements. But the truth is far different. We are not yet what we were meant to be, and the process of becoming is neither quick nor painless. We are like unshaped stone in the hands of a sculptor, rough and unformed, requiring great care and skill to be transformed into something beautiful. And who is this sculptor? None other than God himself. He is the master craftsman, the one who created us and who knows exactly what we were meant to become. But shaping a soul is no easy task. A stone does not shape itself, nor does it willingly submit to the chisel. It resists, unaware of the vision the sculptor has in mind. So too do we resist, complaining against the trials, hardships, and discomforts that God uses to refine us. Yet without these very things we would remain forever unfinished, mere formless blocks instead of masterpieces. Imagine a great cathedral being built. The stones are selected, cut, and carefully placed, but before they can take their proper place in the structure, they must be shaped. A block of marble does not arrive in its final form. It must endure the sculptor's hammer and chisel, each strike removing a part of it. To the marble, this may seem cruel. Why should pieces of it be taken away? Why should it suffer loss? But the craftsman knows that what seems like destruction is in fact creation. The stone is not being ruined, it is being refined. So it is with our souls. The difficulties we face, the losses we endure, the struggles that seem unbearable, these are not punishments, but tools in the hands of the divine craftsman. He is shaping us, preparing us for something greater than we can now understand. We may cry out against the chisel's sharp edge, but he does not wield it without purpose. Every hardship, every moment of pain is carefully measured, cutting away only what is unnecessary so that we may become what he envisions. The difficulty, of course, is that we rarely see the final design. We stand too close to our own lives, focusing on the immediate discomfort rather than the ultimate purpose. A sculpture in progress often looks worse before it looks better. Jagged edges, rough surfaces, pieces missing. But the artist sees what we cannot. He knows what he is creating. If we could glimpse even a fraction of the finished work, we would not resist his hands. We would submit joyfully, trusting that the process, though painful, is necessary. It is a remarkable thing that God, who could complete his work in an instant, instead chooses to shape us gradually. He does not rush, nor does he abandon his task. He takes his time, carefully forming each detail, ensuring that every aspect of our being is aligned with his purpose. This patience should comfort us, for it means that he is committed to us, that he will not leave us half-formed or incomplete. He is not a careless sculptor who gives up when the work is difficult. He is the divine craftsman, and he will see us through to completion. And so, when we face trials, we must remember we are in the hands of a master. The pain we endure is not without meaning. The struggles we face are not without purpose. We are being shaped, refined, and prepared for something beyond our understanding. One day, when we stand in the full light of eternity, we will see what God has been creating all along. And in that moment, we will know every chisel strike, every hammer's blow was worth it. Growth is a curious thing. It often happens in secret, beyond our immediate perception. The mightiest oak was once a tiny seed buried in darkness. The tallest mountain was once a shifting pile of dust, and so it is with the work of God in our lives. Much of it is hidden from us as it unfolds. We often expect to see instant change, to recognize immediately what God is doing. If we are being prepared for an eternal purpose, we assume we will feel it happening. But more often than not, God works in ways that are slow, subtle, and imperceptible. We pray for transformation, but when we do not see immediate results, we grow frustrated. We wonder, has God forgotten me? Why do I feel the same? Why does nothing seem to change? But we forget. Just because we do not see the growth does not mean it is not happening. Consider how a seed grows. For weeks, even months, there may be no visible sign of life. To the untrained eye, it appears lifeless, buried without hope. But beneath the soil, the seed is breaking, stretching, sending out roots that will one day support its full stature. If it were dug up too soon, one might assume nothing was happening, and yet, all along, unseen by human eyes, life was stirring. So it is with our souls. The trials we endure, the lessons we struggle to learn, the prayers that seem to go unanswered, these are the unseen roots growing deep. We may feel stagnant, as though we are making no progress. But God is doing a hidden work. In his perfect time, the growth will become visible, and we will see that he was shaping us all along. This is why faith is required. If we only trusted in what we could see, our belief would be weak indeed. But true faith rests in the unseen, in the assurance that God is working even when all evidence seems to say otherwise. We may not always perceive his hand, but we can trust his heart. He is forming us in ways we cannot yet comprehend, strengthening our character, deepening our wisdom, preparing us for the purpose he has ordained. The greatest transformations often happen quietly. A heart that once harbored bitterness slowly softens. A mind once clouded with doubt gradually learns to trust. A soul that once feared suffering comes to see it as a path to deeper joy. These changes do not happen in a moment. They are cultivated over time, through trials, through waiting, through faith. One day we will look back and see that every moment of invisible growth was leading to something greater. Until then, we must trust the process. The seed is not buried to be forgotten, it is planted to grow. And so are we. Obedience is an uncomfortable word for many. We prefer independence, control, and the assurance that we are the masters of our own fate. But if we truly believe that God is preparing us for an eternal purpose, then obedience is not merely an option, it is the path to becoming what we were created to be. The difficulty lies in trust. We obey most easily when we understand why, when the road ahead is clear, when obedience aligns with our own desires. But God's ways are higher than ours, and His purpose is often beyond our immediate understanding. He calls us to follow even when the road is uncertain, to surrender even when we long to cling, to trust even when nothing makes sense. Consider a traveler who is given a map with only the next step revealed at a time. He may grow frustrated, wishing to see the full journey before he begins. But the guide, knowing the dangers and obstacles ahead, reveals only what is necessary in each moment. If the traveler refuses to move forward until he understands the entire plan, he will never reach his destination. So too are we in our walk with God. He rarely shows us the full picture, not because He is withholding, but because trust must precede understanding. Obedience, then, is an act of faith. It is believing that the one who calls us is good, even when His path is difficult. It is choosing to follow, not because we always understand, but because we trust the heart of the one leading us. Every act of obedience strengthens our faith, just as every moment of doubt delays our growth. But obedience is not mere duty. It is the means by which we are transformed. A child does not become wise by ignoring instruction. A student does not gain knowledge by refusing to study. A soldier does not become strong by avoiding discipline. Growth comes through submission, through the willingness to be led. This is why God often asks for obedience before revelation. He does not wait until we understand to call us forward. He calls, and as we step in faith, the purpose unfolds. Abraham was told to leave his homeland without knowing where he was going. Moses was commanded to speak before he felt qualified. Peter was told to walk on water before he knew he could stand. In every case, obedience came first. And so it is with us. If we wait until we have full clarity before we obey, we may never move at all. But if we trust, if we yield, if we walk forward even when the way is unclear, we will find that every step was leading us to something greater. Obedience is not about rules, it is about becoming. Trust is not about certainty, it is about faith. And in the hands of a loving God, both are shaping us for something far beyond what we can now imagine. It is a difficult truth to accept, but suffering is often the chisel in the hands of God. We long for comfort, yet it is through trials that we are refined. If we are being prepared for an eternal purpose, then hardship is not an obstacle to our destiny. It is the very process by which we are made ready for it. Consider how gold is purified. It does not become valuable by lying undisturbed in the earth. It must be extracted, crushed, and subjected to intense heat. The fire removes impurities, leaving behind only what is precious. So too our souls must endure refining. Without trials we remain full of flaws, pride, selfishness, fear, and doubt. But under the pressure of hardship, these things are burned away, leaving us purer, stronger, and more fit for the purpose God has prepared. This is why suffering, though painful, is not without meaning. God does not allow trials arbitrarily, nor does He take pleasure in our pain. He refines us because he loves us, because he sees the potential we cannot yet see in ourselves. Left untouched, we would remain unfinished, unshaped, unprepared for eternity. Many resist this idea. We prefer to think that love spares us from hardship. But any good parent knows that shielding a child from all difficulty does not strengthen them, it weakens them. A bird whose wings are never tested by the wind will never learn to fly. A warrior who never faces battle will never gain courage. Strength is forged in struggle, and the strongest souls are often those who have suffered most. The question, then, is not whether we will face trials, but how we will respond to them. Some grow bitter under hardship, believing they have been abandoned. Others allow suffering to shape them, trusting that God is using it for their good. Those who resist the refining fire remain unchanged, but those who endure it with faith emerge stronger, wiser, and more like the people they were meant to be. It is important to remember that trials are temporary, but the character they produce is eternal. Pain lasts for a season, but the strength gained from it remains. When we stand before God in eternity, we will not regret the difficulties we endured. We will see with perfect clarity that every hardship was preparing us for something far greater than we could have imagined. Therefore, let us not fear the refining process. Let us not shrink back when the fire grows hot. Instead, let us trust that we are in the hands of a loving craftsman, one who knows exactly what he is doing. Every trial, every struggle, every moment of pain is shaping us, refining us, making us ready. And one day, when we look back, we will see that what we once thought was destruction was in fact the very process of being made whole. There is a moment at the end of every great journey when the traveller stands on the threshold of his destination and sees, at last, the purpose of every step he has taken. The long roads, the struggles, the moments of doubt, all of them in that final instant make perfect sense. What once seemed like meaningless detours or painful delays are revealed to be necessary parts of the path. So it is with our lives. We often think of life in terms of temporary achievements, careers, relationships, personal success, but these are not the true measure of our journey. We were made for something far greater, something beyond the limits of time, and yet we struggle to grasp it. The eternal purpose for which we were created feels distant, like a truth just beyond our reach. But one day, in the light of eternity, all will become clear. The fulfillment of our eternal purpose is not something we stumble upon by accident. It is something we are being prepared for, shaped for, refined for. Every trial we endure, every lesson we learn, every act of obedience, every unseen moment of growth. These are not random events, but purposeful steps in a divine process. God is not merely improving us, He is preparing us. He is crafting something in us that will last beyond this world. It is a mistake to think that our purpose begins only when we reach eternity. The process of preparation is itself part of our calling. Just as a great tree does not wait until it is fully grown to provide shade, so too does our purpose unfold even as we are being shaped. Every moment of faithfulness, every act of love, every trial endured with trust, these are not insignificant. They are glimpses of the eternal purpose already at work within us. But what ultimately is that purpose? What is it that God is shaping us for? The answer is both simple and profound. We are being prepared to reflect His glory, to share in His nature, to become what we were always meant to be. We were not created for mere survival, for fleeting pleasures, or for earthly recognition. We were created to be like Him, to dwell with Him, to live in a reality beyond anything we can now imagine. This changes everything. It changes how we view success, for we see that true accomplishment is not in what we gain, but in who we become. It changes how we face suffering, for we know that trials are not pointless afflictions, but refining fires. It changes how we love, for we recognize that every person we meet is also an eternal soul, being shaped for something greater. And it changes how we live each day. If we are truly being prepared for an eternal purpose, then every moment matters, every choice, every hardship, every act of faith is part of something far bigger than ourselves. We are not wandering aimlessly through life. We are being led towards something extraordinary. One day, when we stand in the presence of God, we will see it all clearly. We will understand why certain doors were closed, why certain hardships were necessary, why certain prayers seemed unanswered. And in that moment, we will not question His plan. We will marvel at it. We will see that He was not just leading us to our purpose, He was shaping us for it all along. Until then, we walk forward in faith. We trust the process. We endure with hope, for we know that every step, no matter how small, is bringing us closer to the fulfillment of something beyond our greatest dreams.